Hello there. Welcome back to the channel, where today we'll be reviewing Toho's biggest crossover event and the planned finale to the Showa era, Destroy All Monsters. This film was meant to be the final movie in the Showa era, and they went all out, with Rodan, Mothra, Angrius, Neela, Baragon, Manda, Kumonga, Gorosaurus, King Ghidorah, and of course Godzilla himself all appearing. Oh, and also Fire Dragon. I wish I was making that up. Much like Ghidorah the three-headed monster and Godzilla vs. Mothra, this is more so a crossover movie rather than a Godzilla movie featuring other Toho monsters. But out of the kaiju featured, Godzilla is easily the most prominent, and due to how popular he was and still is, every movie featuring him has been included in his catalogue of mainline movies. In fact, some even say that the solo movies featuring co-stars should be included as well. I'm just providing this info because a lot of you watching have never seen this movie before, and it's wise to consider how this movie was viewed back then as opposed to how it is now. But without any further ado, let's get into this. Enjoy! Destroy All Monsters starts with a time skip to the late 19th century, so about the mid-90s, or roughly 30 years. During this time, mankind has constructed a base on the moon, and a team on a rocket ship is launching to the moon base. There has also been a massive agricultural project near the Bonin Islands, in the form of Monsterland. No, it's not an island theme park based around giant lizards, although that does ring a bell, but instead it's Monster Island. It's just that the sub I got called it land instead of island. They use special containment systems and a force field that stop the monsters escaping, and they import enough fish to feed them all. In the command center, the scientists working at Monster Island receive a message from the moon base, but gas starts leaking into the command, rendering both the scientists and the kaiju unconscious. Later, while the United Nations is holding a committee to discuss the sabotage, they get reports from all over the world that the monsters are popping up, with Rodan in Moscow, Mothra in Beijing, Baragon in Paris, Manda in London, and of course Godzilla in New York. Confusingly, Tokyo is left untouched, despite it being closest to Monster Island. On the moon, the astronauts head back to the base but encounter a UFO, before the government tells them to land on Monster Island, as they are the only ones who can. Once on Monster Island, they inspect the command center and they find the doctor and one of the astronauts' sisters, and they tell them they can control the monsters. The doctor then takes them to their new leader, the commander of an alien race known as the Kilax. They then ambushed but manage to escape with the doctor and try to interrogate him. However, he doesn't answer and instead parachutes out of a window before walking onto the beach and falling asleep. The Keelax show up and try to kidnap him, but they are stopped, and they find a mysterious round metal object behind his ear. This is how they were controlling him, and also how they are controlling the monsters, so they need to find where the signal is coming from and shut it down. While they search for these signals, a monster finally shows up in Tokyo, with Rodan flying in. If that wasn't bad enough already, Godzilla also appears and starts to go to town, and he is joined by Mothra and Amanda, who are sounding suspiciously like a Kamakura. The military try to stop them, but to no avail. The next morning, Tokyo is in ruins, with all of their progress being set back to zero. There I say, -1. The heroes quickly figure out that Tokyo was just a distraction while they made a new way of controlling the monsters, and the Keelax make a new base underneath Mount Fuji. They promise that if they're left alone, they won't use the monsters to destroy everything, but blackmail doesn't make the government particularly agreeable. They try to attack the base, but true to their words, Godzilla and Angrius attack them, and they are forced to retreat. The next morning, another team is sent to find it, and after a narrow encounter with Godzilla, they find the cave, where the Keelax try to give one final offer. However, the heroes have just found out where the signal is coming from: the moon. The team of astronauts pilot the rocket to the Keelax base on the moon and use an iconic laser cannon to drill into it. The Keelax inside turn into weird rock slug things due to the temperature dropping, as they can only survive in hot environments. It's the 60s, don't question it. They drill out the signal and take control of the monsters themselves and use them to destroy the Keelax base. Also, Kumonga appears here. I don't know how it survived the last movie, but whatever. The Keelax have one final ace up their sleeve: King Ghidorah. and this is the first time I recognized reused footage. I have been told that footage has been reused in both Ibira and Son of Godzilla. They gloat about how none of the Earth monsters can even stand a chance against King Ghidorah. Despite every other fight he's been in, he's had to retreat. That goes as well as you'd expect. But the Kilax have one final ace up their sleeve with Fire Dragon. Fire Dragon. This is his design. Before the commander can gloat anymore, Godzilla breaks into the base, turning the remaining Kilax into the stone rock things. The astronauts get into the rocket to chase after the massive threat that is Fire Dragon. Eventually they catch up and destroy it, but it's just a bluff. A UFO disguised as a kaiju. But the Kilax have one final ace up their sleeve. Just kidding, that's the end of the movie. Okay, right off the bat, why did the Xylians not return? It all lines up, and it could have wrapped up what they thought would be their final story. You have to remember, by this point the genre was getting saturated and they were losing funding rapidly. This was their final shot to get success, hence why they used every toy in their toy box. But why did they have to go and make a new race of aliens? They already established the Xylians earlier, and they gave a line about escaping to the future before they died. And what do you know, but this movie is the only one so far to have a time skip, despite the only new thing besides the aliens, the moon base, not being too far-fetched considering they got to Saturn 3 movies ago. Plus, King Ghidorah was brought back, and he was strongly connected to the Xylians. If you remember, they mind-controlled him, Godzilla, and Rodan and Astro Monster, so it would make perfect sense for them to control all the monsters in this movie. This film doesn't introduce any new monsters or stuff besides the Kilax. I somehow forgot about Fire Dragon, so why not bring the Xylians back and tie it all up? I love this movie, as you're about to see, but this is one major flaw that I can't overlook quite yet. No, not a flaw, more so an opportunity that they missed out on. Even if the Xylians returning didn't tie the Showa era together, it unobjectively would have made the movie better, as the Kilax weren't expanded upon past their basics, and that screen time could have been better spent somewhere else. Now that angry rant aside, this is easily one of the best Godzilla movies I've seen, as it truly covers all fronts. Every gripe I've had about the last two movies are gone, with the sci-fi outer space aesthetic finally returning and Minilla having little to no screen time. It's almost like the last two movies didn't exist. Godzilla's design is back to normal-ish, and there's finally cities being destroyed. And oh, the destruction. This is without a doubt the most Godzilla movie. A massive global threat culminating in a four-way attack on Tokyo, and I didn't know how much I wanted to see an actual, well-lit, non-dusty city until now. This movie knows what it is, what it aims to do, and what the viewers want, and thankfully all of those have the same answer. The plot isn't a normal movie that involves monsters like Bira, but instead it's a kaiju story with a human perspective and stakes. I think that I prefer Astro Monster overall, but I was sick while watching this so I couldn't properly appreciate it and kept zoning out. And yet I have so much praise for this movie. But if I had to show anyone interested in the earlier Godzilla movies one movie, it would without a doubt be King Kong vs. Godzilla. Only I'm allowed to enjoy this franchise, I must scare them off with outdated stereotypes. There are a few weird aspects of this movie, like Mothra being a laugher again, Anguirus being alive, and despite the situation being perfect, they didn't bring back the about Anguirus returning. I guess it's just another member of the species, but I was really hoping for an actual explanation when I learned that he appeared in this movie despite his death in Raids Again. The rocket ship looks amazing, especially the flames coming out of the back, though I'll admit it was hard for my sick-ridden brain to tell the good and bad guys apart due to how similar the suits were coloured. If you saw my last video, wink wink nudge nudge subtle is my middle name, then you know that they introduced Monster Island. I wasn't expecting it to be paid off this soon, but I'm glad that they established and expanded it. Oh, when talking about elements of future eras being established, the Mesa Cannon makes its debut as a tunnel drilling machine. Again, the cities look incredible, and I'm so glad that they're in the day and easy to see. Now, for another element of this film I didn't like, Fire Dragon. Really, Fire Dragon. The plot twist of him being fake was so obvious that I could instantly tell that the Kilax were bluffing. But when their leader died, I assumed this meant that Fire Dragon was an actual kaiju. Weird logic and assumption, but I was already planning a mini rant about him, because he is without a doubt the worst kaiju in this franchise. The biggest reason is that, well, he's not a kaiju, but there's other aspects as well. His design is literally just some fire flying around. He doesn't have any sound design, and his name is the blandest, most generic description ever. Fire Dragon. Good job for taking some creative liberties by adding the word dragon, despite the fact that he doesn't look like a dragon at all. Even ignoring all that, he fails on a fundamental level. Besides me, who even cares about this character? If you haven't seen this movie yet, did you know that he even existed? No one talks about him. I'd be surprised if anyone remembers him after watching this movie. And there's no way any merch of him exists. How could you sell any merch on him? He's just fire. Never mind, I underestimated how much money some fans have. Imagine talking to someone about this franchise and they mention that their favourite monster is Fire Dragon. Fire Dragon. I'm not mad, I'm just insanely confused. Was he added to increase the stakes? It's clear that the budget ran out and they rewrote the script to change the final 5 minutes. That's the only explanation to its inclusion. They needed to hit the 90-minute mark, but this movie ended before then. But this gets even more ridiculous, because look at this! You cannot possibly tell me that this was cheap, especially this building. How about, instead of introducing a new character called Fire Dragon and use a bunch of money exploding stuff, you have the Keylak leader escaping a UFO? That way, you still get the chase at the end of the film, with more stakes, and you don't have to shoehorn in a new character. Back to good stuff with the final battle, and it's so good. Seeing this many monsters in the same scene is incredible, and I'm glad that they all helped out. But should this have been the last movie? It has a happy ending, and is definitely the biggest one yet, with the entire world at stake. The movies after this haven't been received the best, especially the next one, so should they have gone out on a high note instead of running this franchise to the ground? Well, in my opinion, no. Before you argue with me about this, please keep in mind that I'm a YouTuber and that means my opinion is the only one that matters. There was still so much more to do, and most of these movies include some of the best antagonists, like Ghidorah, Gigan, and even Mechagodzilla. Mecha is the main reason why I'm glad that they continued, as this franchise would feel a little empty without him. I do wonder what we would have seen if the Showa era continued past Terror of Mechagodzilla and survived a third death. So all in all, this is the second best movie that we looked at so far, after, of course, Godzilla 1954. Next video, we'll be discussing the worst of the worst, All Monsters Attack. To put simply, this is like one of those TV movies, which a bunch of episodes smooshed down into 90 minutes with some interludes between them as they reused most of the battles from previous movies. Oh, and also Melita talks. That should be fun to watch. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all later.